I want to thank each and every one of you for what I'm about to read and share with you now, for it was written the couple days as soon as I returned from Pyro at the park. And it was inspired by everything that we experienced together, as well as what I have been researching and working on for some time now, which is a manuscript that is turning into a book and educational resources in general. So here we go. The body is the temple. In this chapter, we're going to do a run-through on not just how the body is a zero-point energy device, but how the body can evolve its gravitational and electromagnetic ripple effects through the field, what Einstein called space-time. In essence, how the body can refine the quality of its emissions, its functions, its purpose, its expression. Can we say it's art? It's raison d'etre. What do waves and voltage have to do with physics and the discussion of universal oneness? Take and think about this metaphor. We're going to call it brainwave evolution. To illustrate in fine ink how brainwaves are intimately related to our investigation of universal oneness, consider the reoccurring metaphors that we like to keep handy and enjoy using, such as 1. The body as a radio. 2. The body as an electrical motor engine. 3. The body as an evolving fractal system. Here now, we blend these three analogies into one model, which is the body is a free energy, more accurately termed, zero-point energy device. As the body is functionally, literally equivalent to a radio, motor engine, and evolving fractal system, we not understand but understand this now. Take this example to imagine an experiential example. We're going to call it the heartbeat and egg fertilization. For new life to begin fertilized electrically in the egg in a female's womb from the male's sperm, just like paramedics when they revive someone's heartbeat through electric shock of the heart in the chest, one needs an electric spark to flow across a spark gap between two conductors from one to the other to turn on or activate the motor engine in the second conductor, which in this case would be the heart beating back to life, or the egg incubated and alive with voltage to grow into a fetus embryo. Parentheses, all chicken eggs that reach the grocery store, if you eat those, are those which did not acquire enough voltage, spark electromagnetically to create what we call a bioactive field, some call the aura, that begins the wave life cycle process in the egg. This spark is generated only when the voltage flowing from one conductor to the next exceeds the rate of voltage loss in the spark gap between the two conductors. Truly, the gap only turns into a spark gap if the first conductor's voltage, the current of their voltage of the first conductor exceeds the quantity lost in the gap. What does this have to do with brain waves, prana, energy, and evolution? Continuing now with our prior examples, we can understand a few concepts. First, we see that to activate a new system or to activate new paths for electrical currents to flow, we first require an initial flow, a first conductor of electrical current with voltage equal to or greater than the voltage required to initialize and activate the autonomous flow of the second conductor. This second conductor is activated because the flow of the first conductor exceeds the resistance of the second conductor. Therefore, the first conductor is the inducer. And induction is what is happening to the second conductor, beginning to generate its own voltage again. More specifically, this induction process is a flow of free electrons, also known as an electron cloud, charge cloud, or a chi prana field, that is permissibly beginning to circulate throughout the second conductor. This in turn produces a new electromagnetic field radiating outward from and permeating this second conductor's body, surrounding it as well. We may call this the aura. Thus, the second conductor is now electrically and magnetically active with its own respective field in its own right and able to perform operations according to its inherent programmed electrical, chemical, and mechanical functions. This field can become bioactive if the material constituting it are of biologic nature, along with minerals and water. This is profoundly spiritual and philosophical. How come? Philosophically first, take the Holy Spirit or Kundalini for example. It is widely recorded that experiences of mystical union with the Holy Spirit and as well experiences of Kundalini awakening are like a spark or a candle in which once a being is in this state, which has a particular electromagnetic frequency signature respective to the state itself, this state becomes then permissibly transferable to another nearby system or capacitor or human or electrical motor engine, as long as the nearby system slash capacitor slash human slash electrical motor engine slash antenna can withhold the voltage long enough to learn how to sustain it. What do we mean by sustain it? We say sustain it because in order for a system to continue to generate electromagnetic force over time, we need to make a kind of temple. Thus, this chapter is called The Body as a Temple. What? Why? What do we mean? The body as a radio. One moment, I accidentally pressed space bar here in the wrong place. Please forgive me. Please, thank you for being patient with me. The body as a radio. Think metaphor. Imagine a radio antenna that is being used for standard purposes of catching and transmitting radio waves. What if we wish to begin to capture and transmit X-rays instead of radio waves? Like clairvoyance instead of seeing through your eyes. X-rays are higher up on the frequency spectrum. As we know, this is higher voltage energy. Black holes give off X-ray emissions, inappropriately called Hawking radiation after Stephen Hawking. And so we would need an upgraded, augmented, new and improved hardware parts and electrical circuitry programming radio. Essentially, a transmitter-receiver antenna body that could not only withstand, but also conduct the high voltage frequency of X-ray electromagnetic waves without burning a fuse, aka thermodynamically getting burnt in the process. Humans call this getting burnt effect of having too much resistance in their circuit by the name of inflammation. As we will see again and again, this means we need less and less resistance in our circuitry and higher dielectric material. Higher dielectric material which enables permissivity for magnetism, chi, prana to permeate and flow through any body or structure, as to not only preserve and distribute inertia efficiently, but also accelerate inertia and inertia being energy, to near superconductive states. Now, spiritually, from here we see and understand the reference of the Hebrew lineage when they say only of those of pure heart may enter into the Holy of Holies, or biblically entering within proximity of the Ark of the Covenant, as was taken by Moses and the Israelites in a pure gold-crafted capacitor out of Egypt to the Promised Land. Or in the Upanishads, when it says, those who purify their heart in meditation come to know God. The purification of the heart is both literal and symbolic simultaneously. Both software and hardware. Both body and spirit. In other words, we need a body made up of the kind of frequencies and materials, aka our plasma geometry and biochemical compositions that can withstand the kind of voltage we are seeking to conduct through it. If the body circuit has too much asymmetry instead of symmetry, it will produce heat, both physiological, psychologically, and emotionally. If we would like to conduct more and more pressure of a current, higher voltage, we will need to have less and less resistance to it. Parentheses. Yoga is an ancient practice and science of releasing resistance in the body circuit and tuning it to conduct higher and higher voltage chi prana. End of parentheses. Otherwise, the system, the body, in this case, wouldn't be able to handle it. It would essentially melt. Inflammation comes before the melting, though, so don't worry. Parentheses, exclamation mark. How do we sustain it? The voltage can be sustained as long as the material with which the conductor, and any conductor that wishes to conduct higher voltage in general, is built utilizing high dielectric material and assembled in phi golden ratio proportions. Phi golden ratio proportions. And now, spiritually, take the Virgin Mary Magdalene giving birth to Jesus Christ, for example. She had a virgin birth precisely because her body came to be a conduit for such voltage that it created the necessary spark in her spark gap womb, electrically activating one of her eggs with the pure electricity of what we may rightfully call the Holy Spirit, also known as Brahman in the Hindu tradition, also known as Kundalini in the yogic tradition, also known as grace in the Christian tradition, which is literally an electrical condition that carries with it very precise particular frequency signatures in the phi golden ratio proportional wave interrelationships. How did she, Mary Magdalene, come to be a conduit for such voltage? Remember, love is equivalent to gravity in a literal sense, as love frequency signatures taken through human samples of broad spectral brainwave and heartwave frequency analysis, as recorded and documented thanks largely to Mr. Dan Winter, indeed show clearly that the ratio relationships between peaks of the amplitude of the waves are an exact golden ratio, golden mean proportion to each other in moments of love, bliss, and peak perception. And as we have seen several times, greatly and thanks to Mr. Johannes Kepler and Mr. Nassim Haramein, golden ratio, golden mean proportion is the most constant, dominant proportion in all stellar interplanetary orbital mechanics, and even as a universal invariant scaling metric for the precise ratio between energetic properties of all negentropic life-giving systems, all the way from the Planck dimension size to the atom, all the way to the microtubules in the human body, even further to planetary and stellar objects, on to galactic size and quasars, finally all the way to the universal size, all on a graph where on the x-axis, left to right, we have total energy levels, which is a quotient of mass divided by frequency, which is a quotient of mass and frequency. And on the y-axis, going up and down, we have radius or size. It just so happens that every one of the major negentropic life-giving natural systems mentioned previously above, from the Planck atom size to the universal stellar object size, all of these systems, as mentioned in Nassim Haramein's invariant scaling law paper, all fall in a linear golden ratio order progression in relationship to each other. As you go increasing frequency and decreasing radius on the scale, which looks like a downward right not sure which way it's looking, downward right pointing straight line with life, such as an atom or a cell, a human cell, or a planet or a star, happening, occurring, manifesting in the universe, wherever the line comes on the graph across a golden ratio, golden mean proportion, node point. Thank you. Stay blessed.